What if a single decision could change the fate of millions? History often seems unstoppable, yet sometimes the world shifts because of one critical choice. A driver takes a wrong turn in Sarajevo. A president authorizes a devastating weapon. A military leader crosses a forbidden river. Suddenly, everything changes. Today we're exploring 10 decisions that changed the course of history. Moments when one choice reshaped the future of the world. Number 10. Julius Caesar crosses the Rubicon 49 BCE. In ancient Rome, there was a rule that generals were not allowed to bring their armies into Italy. The purpose of that rule was simple: prevent military leaders from overthrowing the government. But in 49 BCE, Roman general Julius Caesar made one of the most famous decisions in history. Instead of obeying orders to disband his army, he marched his troops across a small river called the Rubicon. This was effectively a declaration of rebellion against the Roman Senate. According to historical accounts, Caesar reportedly said the phrase, "The die is cast." And he was right. By crossing the Rubicon, Caesar triggered a civil war that ultimately destroyed the Roman Republic and paved the way for the Roman Empire under Augustus. In other words, one decision by a general turned Rome from a republic into an empire that would dominate Europe for centuries. Sometimes historians joke that Caesar's decision proves something important. Never underestimate the consequences of crossing the wrong river. Number 9. Columbus decides to sail west, 1492. By the late 1400s, European traders desperately wanted access to Asia's spices and silk. The problem was that the existing routes were long, dangerous, and controlled by rival powers. Christopher Columbus had a radical idea. Instead of sailing east to Asia, why not sail west across the Atlantic Ocean? Many scholars believed this was impossible. Some thought the distance was too great, while others feared sea monsters or unknown oceans. But Columbus convinced Spain's rulers to fund his expedition. In 1492, he sailed west, and instead of reaching Asia, he encountered the Americas. This decision triggered one of the most significant global transformations in human history. The encounter between Europe and the Americas began centuries of exploration, colonization, cultural exchange, and conflict known as the Columbian Exchange, which reshaped global agriculture, trade, population patterns, and disease transmission. Entire continents were suddenly connected. One voyage changed the entire world map. Number 8. Martin Luther publishes the 95 Theses, 1517. In 1517, a German monk named Martin Luther made a decision that shook the foundations of European religion. He publicly criticized corruption in the Catholic Church, especially the selling of indulgences, where people paid money in exchange for supposed forgiveness of sins. Luther wrote his famous 95 Theses, a list of arguments against church practices. What happened next shocked Europe. Because of the printing press, a relatively new technology, Luther's ideas spread rapidly across the continent. The result was the Protestant Reformation, which split Christianity into multiple denominations and permanently transformed European politics, culture, and religion. Wars were fought over these religious divisions for more than a century. A monk with a pen had ignited one of the biggest religious revolutions in human history. Number 7. The American colonies declare independence, 1776. In July 1776, representatives from 13 British colonies faced a historic choice. They could remain part of the British Empire, or they could risk everything and declare independence. Signing the Declaration of Independence was essentially an act of treason against Britain. If the revolution failed, many of the signers would likely be executed. But they chose independence. The result was the creation of the United States of America, which would later become one of the most powerful nations in the world. The decision also inspired future democratic movements around the globe, influencing revolutions in France, Latin America, and beyond. One political document changed the global conversation about freedom, rights, and government. Number 6. Napoleon invades Russia, 1812. Sometimes decisions change history not because they succeed, but because they fail. In 1812, French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte made a fateful decision: invade Russia. At the time, Napoleon controlled much of Europe and commanded one of the most powerful armies ever assembled, the Grande Armée, consisting of over 600,000 soldiers. The plan seemed unstoppable, but Russia adopted a brutal strategy: retreat, destroy supplies, and let winter do the rest. Napoleon's army advanced deep into Russia, eventually reaching Moscow. But they could not survive the harsh winter and supply shortages. The invasion ended in disaster. Only a fraction of the army returned. Napoleon's power collapsed soon after. Historians often describe this invasion as one of the greatest military mistakes in history. Number 5. Gavrilo Princip assassinates Archduke Franz Ferdinand, 1914. Sometimes history turns on a moment so strange that it almost sounds fictional. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was visiting Sarajevo. A group of nationalists planned to assassinate him. The first attempt failed when a bomb missed the Archduke's car. Later, the driver accidentally took a wrong turn and stopped near one of the conspirators, Gavrilo Princip. Princip seized the opportunity and shot the Archduke and his wife. The consequences were enormous. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia and declared war, triggering a chain reaction among Europe's alliances. Within weeks, the world was engulfed in World War I, a conflict that killed millions and reshaped global politics. One gunshot changed the 20th century. Number 4. Hitler invades the Soviet Union, 1941. In June 1941, Adolf Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the massive invasion of the Soviet Union. At first, the German army advanced rapidly. But the decision to fight a two-front war against both the Soviet Union and the Western Allies proved catastrophic. The Eastern Front became the largest and deadliest battlefield in human history. By the end of the war, tens of millions of people had died. Historians widely view this decision as a turning point that ultimately led to Nazi Germany's defeat. Sometimes ambition becomes self-destruction. Number 3. Truman authorizes the atomic bomb, 1945. In 1945, the United States completed a secret project known as the Manhattan Project, which developed the world's first nuclear weapon. President Harry Truman faced a terrifying decision: use the atomic bomb or continue a brutal war that was expected to cost hundreds of thousands of lives in a potential invasion of Japan. After issuing the Potsdam Declaration demanding Japan's surrender, Truman approved the use of the bomb when Japan did not respond. Atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. The bombings contributed to Japan's surrender and the end of World War II. But they also began the nuclear age, creating weapons capable of destroying entire cities in seconds. Even today, historians and ethicists debate whether the decision was justified. Number 2. The Soviet Union allows the Berlin Wall to fall, 1989. For nearly 3 decades, the Berlin Wall divided East and West Berlin, symbolizing the Cold War divide between communist and democratic worlds. In 1989, East German authorities made a confusing announcement about new travel rules. Crowds gathered at the wall demanding passage. Instead of ordering troops to open fire, something that had happened before, the guards made a surprising decision. They opened the gates. People poured across the border, celebrating and tearing down sections of the wall. Within 2 years, the Soviet Union itself collapsed. The Cold War, one of the most dangerous geopolitical rivalries in history, was effectively over. Sometimes the most powerful decision is simply choosing not to use force. Number 1. Tim Berners-Lee creates the World Wide Web, 1989. Not every history-changing decision involves war or politics. In 1989, British scientist Tim Berners-Lee proposed a system to help researchers share information more easily over the internet. His idea was simple, but revolutionary. Documents would be connected using clickable links. This system became the World Wide Web. Today, billions of people rely on the web for communication, education, business, entertainment, and global collaboration. Entire industries, from social media to e-commerce, exist because of that idea. One scientist's decision to improve information sharing created the digital world we live in today. History isn't just events, it's the story of decisions that shaped our world. And sometimes, one choice can change the future forever. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for more fascinating stories about the moments that changed history.